Unloading your transport at a bulk plant or customer location is an important part of your job as a transport operator. After all, it is that propane that heats homes, powers equipment, and keeps many parts of our country running efficiently every day. Many businesses, industries, and families rely on you to deliver your product safely. This begins with performing your unloading tasks carefully and correctly. This video segment will discuss the proper unloading procedures necessary to ensure the safe delivery of your load. When you arrive at the bulk plant, take the time to look around for hazards or obstacles that might interfere with your ability to safely unload. Look for sources of ignition, like other vehicles. Wait until they leave the area before starting to unload. Watch for any personnel or customers. Check to see how level the parking area is. You want your transport to be as level as possible to ensure that all of your product gets unloaded. Be confident that you can unload your product safely. If you find an issue that needs to be corrected, let someone at the bulk plant know. If no one is available, contact the plant's emergency contact number or your company prior to unloading to find out what action to take.
When you're unloading, you always have to be aware of any piece of equipment. If you use it, it's going to wear out. And it may be over a long period of time, but you have to be aware of these issues. If you see something that is worn or is becoming deficient, whether it's gaskets or a leaky stem on a valve or whatever, it's necessary that you get it repaired. It's necessary for you to tell the plant manager or your own office manager or your shop foreman.
If the site looks good, go ahead and pull your transport into the correct spot for unloading. Park parallel to the bulkhead, at least 10 feet away. Set your brakes. Depending on company policy and equipment configuration, you may shut off your engine and turn off any electrical devices. Once you are out of the cab, look, listen, and smell for leaks. Place chock blocks or appropriate wheel stops in front of and behind a wheel. Your company may have a policy about which wheel you choose. Before you start the transfer of propane, select the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, needed to perform the unloading process. See your supervisor for your company policy on what PPE should be used. As you walk around your truck, take a look to be sure equipment is attached. Nothing looks out of place, and nothing has changed since your pre-trip inspection. Be sure to look, listen, and smell for leaks and any vapor mist that might indicate a leak. You are now ready to inspect bulk plant equipment to be sure it is ready for unloading. There are a variety of styles of piping, so you want to be sure you understand how the flow will work into and out of the plant. Find the bulk plant valves and emergency shutdown stations, fire extinguishers, and emergency shutdown valves. Don't unload until you are sure of where these are. Is the equipment in good working condition? Are pipes improperly secured? Pay particular attention to the condition of the valves, fittings, cables, and hoses. Look for issues such as worn threads and missing O-rings. Check the storage tank to see if it will hold your load. Your load information will be on the bill of lading. Many customer locations will have more than one storage tank. If you can fill into both storage tanks, it is easier on your transport's pump. Check both the percentage gauge and the temperature gauge on the storage tank. You can use the percentage gauge to tell you the liquid volume. Can the tank hold your load? Never overfill the storage tank. Allow space for the propane vapor in the tank to expand. If it is close, you may need to get out a calculator to determine the capacity. For example, a 30,000-gallon storage tank will be filled to around 24,000 gallons. Refer to your company policy or contact your supervisor. Mark these readings on your paperwork. If your load will fill the storage tank over its safe filling capacity, contact your supervisor to determine where you should take your load. If you take it elsewhere, be sure to change the destination on your bill of lading for Department of Transportation purposes. If the storage tank will hold your load, you can begin preparations for the unloading process. DOT regulations and NFPA 58 require that propane be odorized prior to transportation to the bulk plant. As a verification of odorization, conduct a sniff test. If odorant is not detected, contact your supervisor. If a grounding cable is required at the bulk plant, make sure it is connected before you transfer product. During the unloading process, you transfer liquid propane into the system and typically move vapor back out to equalize pressure. You may add methanol based on customer requirements. See your company policy. Follow the pipes through to be sure you know the path the liquid propane will take as it fills the storage tanks and where the path of the vapor return line is. If your transport is equipped with one, open the loading gate. Slowly remove the cap, ensuring there is no pressure. You may have a bleeder valve to help assist with this. If there is no pressure, remove the cap. As you remove the cap, make sure the gaskets or O-rings are there. Ensure that they are not missing, broken, or cracked. If there is pressure, do not remove the cap. Check with your supervisor. You are now ready to start connecting hoses. Take the time to look over your hoses to be sure they are not worn or damaged. Connect the liquid hose. Some companies provide hoses for the transfer of liquids that have built-in safety mechanisms which shut off the flow of liquid if the hose is compromised during transfer. Depending on your company's policy, you may connect the liquid hose first. If using a passive shutdown hose, you must remain within 25 feet of the cargo tank. If using a facility hose, you have to visually examine the hose and remain within arm's reach of the emergency shutoff. An adapter might be necessary due to different sized connections. If using your own hose, connect the vapor hose to the storage tank bulkhead and to the vapor valve on the transport. If the vapor hose is a facility hose, connect it to the transport.
I personally, when I'm unloading, will put a mud flap, an old mud flap underneath my hose. The hose does have a vibration when you're unloading, and it saves the hose from chafing on the gravel or on stone or on cement.
Yeah, I use a bungee cord to hold my hose up off the ground. Just the vibration from the pump when we're transferring the load. A rock or just about anything can wear a hole through the hose or the outer casing pretty quickly.
Tighten the connections by hand, but then secure them further as needed by using a spanner wrench. Be sure the connections are snug. Open the internal valves first. This gives them a chance to equalize while you are performing other tasks. Observe the pressure gauges on both the transport and receiving tank. If there is a significant difference in the pressures, slowly open the vapor valve, allowing pressures to equalize. High difference in pressures can cause enough flow to close excess flow valves. Open the vapor and liquid lines slowly. Check the connections to make sure they are secure and not leaking.
After I get the hoses connected up, I open the vapor hose first. It's for several different reasons. One of them primarily is you want to make sure that the vapor is going to equalize between the transport tank and the storage tank. And that's for a couple different reasons. The pumps are designed as a transfer pump. They're not designed to push against pressure. And it's necessary too to keep an equalization of pressure in order that the proper amount is delivered to the storage tank and that there's nothing left on the transport tank.
You can now open up the appropriate facility liquid and vapor valves. Slowly engage the power takeoff control in the cab. If the pump is shaft driven, be sure the engine is set to the RPM required to power the transport pump. Engage the pump. Ensure the pump is pumping in the correct direction. Configurations may vary. Be sure to know how to operate the pump that you are using. Be familiar with your company policies and procedures. The transport pump will pump the propane out of the transport into the storage tank. If equipped with a site flow indicator, check it to ensure the flapper valve is open and product is transferring. Recheck hoses for leaks. Monitor the gauges to ensure the product is flowing in the right direction. You are required to stay within 25 feet of an emergency shutoff valve and to be aware of everything that is going on. Since there are emergency shutoffs on the right rear and left front of the transport, you can stay compliant, but still spend this time checking components of your transport. You can check for hydraulic leaks and the condition of your vehicle while you monitor the unloading process. Be prepared, however, to act quickly to close emergency shutoff valves to immediately stop the transfer operation if a hazardous situation presents itself. As your transport gets close to becoming empty, listen for a notable change in the sound the pump is making. This will indicate that the liquid and vapor have started to mix. This can increase wear of the vanes in the pump. Slowing the pump down will reduce the wear and tear on the pump. This also allows you to get all of the liquid out of your transport. Some indications that the transport is empty are the plant's sight glass has no flow, the transport sight glass has no flow, the gauge on the transport indicates empty, or the change in the sound of the pump. When the unloading process is complete, you can start shutting systems down. If equipped, move the hydraulic lever to the off position. Close the internal valves. Move to the cab and disengage the power takeoff control valve there. Then, turn off the engine. Close all liquid and vapor internal valves on the bulkhead. You can now start closing the valves on the transport. Close the vapor valve, then close the liquid valve. Open the bleeder valves on both lines to relieve vapor pressure. After the pressure is gone, remove the vapor hose from the transport. Replace the vapor cap and close the bleeder valve. Remove the vapor hose from the bulkhead and replace the cap. Place the vapor hose back into the transport hose tube, or if it is a facility hose, place it in its storage area. Slowly loosen the liquid hose from the transport. To minimize the chance of injury from escaping liquid when stowing, stay clear of the hose end. Another option is to place the hose on the ground away from you in case there is any propane draining from the hose. Disconnect the liquid hose from the bulkhead, keeping that end high to allow the propane to drain out the other end. Replace the cap on the liquid line. Walk out the hose to be sure all the propane is drained out. Place the liquid hose back on the transport. Replace the cap on the liquid line on the transport. Shut off the bleeder valves on the transport. If the transport is equipped, close the gate. Now that you have closed down everything, you can complete your final paperwork. You should record the storage tank size and the beginning and ending temperature and percentage readings for the transport and storage tank. Finish the final paperwork completely. Some plants request drivers add methanol. If you added methanol, indicate this on the final paperwork. Other information included on this report includes your name, the date, the destination, tractor and transport numbers, and an order number. There is also a bill of lading number on the load. You should sign off on the paperwork that the propane has been odorized. Odorant is normally added in the loading process. Sign and date the final paperwork too. Leave the appropriate copies of the final paperwork at the bulk plant. You are almost finished. Take a good look around your transport. Check all valves and caps on the bulkhead and your transport to be sure they are all intact and closed. Check the internal valves to be sure they are closed. Remove your wheel stops and stow them. Check your mirrors to be sure everything looks secure. Take a look around the plant to see if any personnel or customers are in the area as you slowly pull out. If any gates or valves were locked when you arrived, be sure that you lock them when you leave. Following the proper unloading procedures each and every time you unload propane will help to ensure the safe delivery of your load.
It's important that you take your time. Don't be in a hurry. When you start doing things in a hurry, you start making mistakes. So you need to take your time, follow the proper procedures, put on your personal protection equipment. That's important for your safety, and follow proper procedures. Try and get into the habit of doing the same routine over and over again, and think about what you're doing.